Tuesday, the story of a terminally ill girl and her death parrot. And no, I'm not making that up. Let's talk about Tuesday. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Our Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Tuesday, which is coming to theaters on June 14th, 2024. It is a new film from A24 that stars Julia Louis-Dreyfus and is, again, about a terminally ill girl and her death parrot. So, is this movie worth your time? Is it something you should check out? Well, my hot take is I think you should probably actually pass on it. It has a great performance by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. It has some emotional moments and some funny moments as well, but it's a little bit slow and a little bit strange for me, and that's saying something. I love A24. I mean, look, every A24 movie, it'll at least be unique. It'll at least be different. And this is definitely different, but I didn't love this movie as much as I would have expected to. So I ultimately think you should pass on it, but I'm going to tell you a little about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there'll be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't know what happens in this movie, and you might not, there are some surprises along the way. I would turn it off when I get there. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in Tuesday, you have Zora, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is kind of trying to provide for her teenage daughter, Tuesday, that's why it's called Tuesday, who seems to be sick, seems to have been sick for a very long time, and is starting to kind of approach death and has to confront death in a very real way. This film has death portrayed in a very real way. But when that happens, some things don't go so well, and the family has to make some very, very big decisions. So, things I loved about this movie. The first, it has some very funny moments. It's a weird premise. It's a strange film, but there are definitely some funny moments as Tuesday is confronting death and things like that. And also as Zora is like trying to deal with this whole situation. There are definitely moments of levity, which is important because it's a film that deals with like disease and death. So you need to have some funny moments, and this movie does have them. The second thing I loved, it is emotional. It takes a bit to get there. It's more emotional towards the latter half, but there are some good emotions in there. Most of them are from Zora's character, but there are definitely some good emotional moments that are going to pull on your heartstrings. And the last thing I love, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, she does a good job. She is not super active in the first part of the movie, but then the second half, she gets a little more involved. She does a great job as Zora. She is kind of the main thrust of this movie. She's the main kind of like emotional pull of this movie. So definitely hats off to her. It's a great performance. I wish I liked this movie more. So things I didn't love as much. The first, it's a weird intro. It's a very weird intro. I'm going to go into it in the like recap and ending section, but it's very odd. It didn't grab my attention like I was hoping to. It didn't sink its parrot claws into me. Second thing I didn't love, it's really slow. It's really, really slow. Like I'm okay with that sometimes, but this movie just didn't, again, it didn't grab my attention. So the fact that it was slow didn't help it. It just felt like it was kind of like moving on. I was like waiting for it to get to the better part. So again, I was like checking my watch at like 20 minutes in, which is never a good sign. Usually in 20 minutes, I should be still learning, still excited. And I was just like wondering how much longer this movie had. So again, not a great thing. And the last thing I didn't love as much, it's strange. Sometimes I like strange. This movie is strange in a different way. And maybe that's just because I didn't connect with the death character. And the main strangeness is the death character. So maybe that's the main reason I didn't connect with it, but it just didn't grab me. Again, this movie is all about like not grabbing me, not getting my attention, not like keeping me focused. So take that for what it's worth. I think with some changes, this might have been a more interesting movie to me, but I just didn't enjoy this as much as I expected to. So that is Tuesday. It's coming to theaters on June 14th, 2024. Like I said, I think you should probably pass on it. But if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know you liked and didn't like. Let me know what got right and wrong. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to go into a recap in the ending section. So if you don't know what happened in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. Like I said, this movie has a weird introduction, and you'll notice in the image I had this eagle character. That was the closest thing I had to a parrot. I didn't really have a parrot lying around, but the film starts with a CG like gross, dirty death parrot flying to various people and who seem to be like asking for death. And so he'll like it it has like a very kind of like, I don't know, cosmic aspect to it. Like it starts with the earth and then it pulls out and you see the earth is actually the eye of the parrot, who is a tiny little parrot that's like sitting on like the nose of someone, like lying down with them. And then it pulls out more. And then that parrot like goes to someone else's house and that seems to be dying. Apparently, this death parrot is death, and it goes to various people as they're wishing for death and grants them their wish. So this is the entity death. This parrot is the entity death. Now, Zora is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She is a mom who is trying to kind of like provide for her teenage daughter Tuesday. Her daughter is sick. You don't ever find out why. She seems to not be able to move around easily. She's in a wheelchair, or at least a movement chair. She has oxygen on her all the time. She has something going on with her. You don't ever find out what it is, but she is very, very sick. And Zora has been trying to like help out, trying to provide for her, do what she can. And she has a nurse that comes to help her, and then Zora goes off and works. Or does she? We find out that Zora actually isn't working. And you don't ever know why. You're not sure if she just like couldn't handle it, if she kind of like gave up, or she was fired. You don't know why, but you do know that she is trying to get the cash to pay for her daughter's care. So the first kind of scene we see with her, she is pawning off these like taxidermy rats that are they're clever. It's a funny scene. You know, Julia Louis-Dreyfus does have a little bit of comedy in here where she's like pretending like, oh, like she like makes voices for the rats. She's trying to pawn those rats off for cash. And it seems like she is using this cash to then pay for her daughter's care. You know, having a full-time nurse is expensive, and so she is paying for the nurse with the cash that she is selling stuff with. After that, she goes and like sits in the park just trying to, I think, deal with everything, and falls asleep in the park. So she seems to be just overwhelmed in general, and doing what she can to survive. Now, Tuesday is surviving, but she doesn't seem to be very happy. She seems like she is getting closer to death, getting more used to it. She's outside with her nurse. They're hanging out, reading, and she's listening to some music. And then she hears the flapping wings of death, and the death parrot shows up. And it's interesting because you would think that Tuesday would be like scared, but she's not. She seems to be comfortable. Maybe because she's closer to death. Maybe she's been waiting for this. It does seem like when the death parrot shows up to people, they're not afraid. They seem to be kind of like happy that it's finally going to be over. So the death parrot comes. Tuesday and the death parrot kind of like hang out for a little bit. They're talking, and it seems like the parrot really likes her. Like he seems to take a shine to her. So they hang out for the rest of the day. She like asks him about stuff. They listen to some music. They listen to Today Was a Good Day. And like the death parrot raps a little bit of it, which was very funny, very, very random, but very funny. And then you start thinking like, wait, this is Ice Cube with Tupac. Tupac was definitely taken by this death parrot. Like this death parrot takes many, many people. Definitely took Tupac way too soon. So then as they're hanging out, they like Tuesday has some book of like random people, like very random people. It was like Queen Elizabeth II, and then like Stalin, and then Jesus. I don't really know what this book is other than like random important historical people. But the death parrot talks about each of them and like how they died and whatnot. It was like another like funny moment in this movie. So she then tries to like pet the parrot, and he like pulls away. He's like, I'm filthy. And so she gives the parrot a bath. And so she gives the parrot a bath, cleans it up. It seems like they are connecting very well. And then eventually, as they're hanging out, she says, please don't kill me. I guess she's not ready yet. And he's like, I must, I must, I must. And he like repeats it over and over again. And again, oh yeah, again, the parrot can talk. The parrot can talk throughout this. So he doesn't kill her yet. He gives her some more time. We find out that the parrot likes her because she makes his head silent. He's always hearing like people calling for help, people screaming. And I guess when he's hanging out with Tuesday, for some reason, she makes his head quiet. So I guess he's happy for that little respite. But he's been hanging out with her all day. And I think because he's hanging out with her, he's not doing his job of like helping people move on. So it's not fully explained, but it does seem like because of this, death is kind of on hold. Like you get some sounds from the outside world, and it's a lot of screaming. There's some fires. There's some sort of like locust plague. I don't know why the locust plague is there, unless this is like the start of the apocalypse, but it doesn't seem like it is. I'm not sure. But you do also see some scenes of like people who probably should be dead who aren't dying yet. Like someone had like their legs chopped off and they're like walking around. There was one scene where like a bird without its head is like pecking at Zora's window. I guess the parrot couldn't move him along yet. Things like that. It is strange. But needless to say, the death parrot's got to get back to work. Now, as they're like having this discussion, Zora comes home, and she comes home. She goes up to see her daughter, and the death parrot is like hanging out in Tuesday's ear. Like the parrot can shrink and grow to various sizes. And so now it's hanging out in Tuesday's ear. And he's like, you gotta tell her, you gotta tell her, you gotta tell her. And so she finally says, I'm gonna die tonight. And this upsets her mother. But what also upsets her mother is when Zora starts talking to the parrot in her ear that her mother can't see and tells him that like she needs to show up. And so eventually the parrot flies out and appears in front of Zora. And that definitely would freak someone out. Tuesday tries to calm her mother, tries to tell her about the parrot, and the parrot eventually looks at Zora and is like, it's time to say goodbye to your daughter. So she asks for some time. The parrot goes outside to say goodbye to her daughter. Now, while the parrot's outside, he's hearing all the things, all the voices. He seems distracted. And that's when Zora sneaks up behind him with a book and just like bashes him over and over again with a book. And then to really drive the point home, she pours some alcohol on the parrot, lights him on fire. He goes out. So it seems like she is trying to prevent death. Now, after all of that, the parrot is like still alive. It's still moving, even though it has been bashed and burned. So Zora does the only logical thing as she picks it up and eats it. Again, not the smartest idea, but that seems to solve the problem. She goes back up to see her daughter. She's like, oh, he had to go do other stuff. He had to go like do his job. And so her daughter accepts this. They fall asleep, and the next day they kind of hang out. It's really nice. Like Zora seems to be kind of absent a lot of times. I think she just couldn't deal with this, but now that death was so close, she wants to spend some time with her, and so they spend the day together. They start having fun, but Zora seems to be having some stomach problems. She a couple times like almost vomits, and that's not the only thing that happens. She also starts to seem to take on some death powers. So while they're hanging out, she just like grows to be the size of the room. Remember, death can like grow and shrink to be the size it needs. So she grows to be the size of the room. Now, this is fine, except Zora can't control her powers. So when the nurse comes, she is obviously freaked out that there is a giant Zora in the bedroom. Zora is able to eventually get her powers under control, and Tuesday asks the nurse to like take them somewhere. And so the nurse takes them to a field, and then Tuesday's like, you can go, you can go. And so in this field, Zora starts to kind of like experiment with her powers. There's like a fly that flies over to her, like lands on her finger, and she like waves her hand, and the fly dies. Like, I don't know why she killed the fly. That seems rude. Didn't do anything. But she does that. It seems like she's starting to kind of comprehend what's going on. And then she starts to grow, and she grows fairly large to like a giant sized woman, and then picks up Tuesday. Tuesday's already in like a carrier because she can't move, and so she like basically picks up Tuesday like a child in a baby carrier because she's now this giant woman, and takes her with her on her night of doing death's task. So she goes to various people. They all seem very appreciative, like finally you're here, the pain can end, and she like ends all these people's lives in like a very compassionate way. And so this is a compassionate scene, right? These people have been suffering for a while. I guess they couldn't move on while death was around. So they've been suffering for like a couple days at this point. So she's finally putting them out of their misery. She seems happy with it. They seem happy. I don't know why the locusts are around. I don't know what death needs to like kill the locusts. I'm not sure. But in any event, she does her job for the night. Tuesday eventually falls asleep, and then she wakes up on the beach with Zora there, and Zora is just like energized. She's like finally has a purpose in life. She's like, I'm good at this. Like I'm doing this. She says that she like found her calling, and she tells Tuesday that they can do this together. And Tuesday's like, what? Like, no, we can't do this together. And Zora's like, it's fine, it's fine. We'll talk about it later. And she goes to the bathroom. But while she's there, her indigestion comes back, and she coughs up death. Death finally is able to escape, coughs up away from Tuesday. They seem to have a conversation, and then Death, agrees to something, pops back into her, and you only hear Death say like, "You tell her exactly like we talked about, or I'll rip you up from the inside." Because he's inside of her. He's inside her stomach, so he could do that. And so Zora comes back and talks to Tuesday. And she basically says, like, I want to do what's best for you. I don't want you to feel pain. I want you to, like, I want to make the decisions that are best for you. And you don't have to worry about me. Like, you don't have to stay here for me. I'll be fine. We need to do what you want to do. And so they decide to go home. They go back home. Zora again grows into like a giant and carries Tuesday back home. They go back to home and lay Tuesday down. And when they're back home, Zora lets Death out. And she, uh, you know, Death gives them some more time. They have another touching moment, and then Death does what was supposed to do the day before. He takes Tuesday. So again, a sad scene. Next we see Zora in bed, like waking up, looking, like she doesn't really have much of a purpose. She's just like seems to just be kind of surviving. Now she's still in the house. She's still wallowing. For some reason, the nurse is still coming around. I don't know why the nurse is still there. Like, she was real expensive. Maybe she like had to pay by the month, and so the nurse had to just keep coming anyways, and she wanted to check on Zora because had to come anyways. I don't know. I would think that she would have cut that off pretty quickly and been like, "We don't need you now." But the nurse is still there. Uh, but later, Death shows up, and Zora gets scared. She's like, "Oh my God! Like, are you here for me? Like, I don't want to die." And Death is like, "No, I just came to check on you." And so they have a drink, which was another funny scene because she pours them shots of like some sort of rum, and Death is a parrot, so he can't really drink the shot glass. She's like, "You should drink," and so he like tries to like drink the shot glass. He can't do it. He tries to pick up the shot glass with his claw, and it just like falls over. And she's like, "Oh, okay, I see why." But after this awkward like drink conversation, Zora tells him, "I really think it'd be better if I was dead." And Death like is upset about this. And she asks like, "Is there an afterlife? Is there something after?" Like, "Yeah, tell me." Death doesn't tell her, but after a little bit, he does kind of give her some information. He says, like, there is no God, but there is an afterlife. But it's not the afterlife you think of. He says the afterlife is like the memories you leave. Like the afterlife is the impression in this earth that you have left after your life. So basically, like the memories that Zora have of Tuesday are Tuesday's afterlife. It's very much so like the real treasures of friends we made along the way. So then Death reminds Zora of what she said. Death is really good at doing impersonations. He can like remember everything. So he reminds Zora of what she told Tuesday about how, Tuesday can go. She will be fine. Zora will be fine. Tuesday shouldn't worry about her. Zora, will survive. And so this reminds Zora that, she needs to do what she said. She needs to move on. She needs to live her life. And in doing that, she will also be like perpetuating Tuesday's afterlife. She like her living her life and her remembering Tuesday will be the afterlife of Tuesday. So after this, Death departs, and the nurse shows up again. And she comes back. She comes in. She's like, "Hey, I brought a lot of cheese." For some reason, Zora really likes cheese. She ate it a couple times. And Zora is like in bed, like contemplating this, and I think maybe sad that she's still around. But I think she understands what she has to do because the next thing she says is she says to herself, like, "Right, get up, woman." And that's it. That's Tuesday. That's the end. Like I said, it had some interesting things, but I just didn't like it as much as I expected to. I think it was mostly the Death Parrot. I think it looked okay. It didn't look great, but it looked okay. I think if Death was something else, I think the parrot just didn't do it for me. It was tough to like get behind it when you got a Death Parrot like rapping and like trying to drink and like interacting with people. I think if Death was something else, maybe like an actor, maybe like a person, that might have been more engaging for me. I don't know. There was something about it that just like felt a little ridiculous at the start and just I never really got over it. So that is Tuesday. Like I said, I think you should pass on it, but it's coming to theaters on June 14th, 2024. And if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.